The courtroom is quiet until Kody's son stands up and says, "I'm ready to tell the truth." Then everything the family tried to keep secret starts to fall apart in front of everyone. You don't know this family if you think you do. Stay with me, because what happens next will change everything you thought was true. The air in the courtroom is thick and almost hard to breathe. It's not just the people whispering and moving around on the wooden benches, it's the tension, the kind that makes it hard to breathe and pushes down on your chest. Kody is at the defense table, sitting up straight with his jaw so tight it looks like it might break. His eyes move quickly around the room, not out of fear, but to figure things out. He is trying to figure everyone out. Trying to keep things under control. But for the first time, things are getting out of control. Christine is sitting up straight across from him, and her face is calm, but it's not peaceful. It's determination. The kind of determination that only comes after years of silence, years of putting up with pain, and years of waiting for the right time. And today is that time. Janelle sits next to her with her arms crossed tightly over her chest and a blank expression on her face. But her eyes stay on Kody. Not even for a second. That look means something. Something that isn't done. Robin, on the other hand, looks scared. She holds a tissue in her shaking hands, and her eyes are already red. She looks like she might break at any moment, but no one knows if it's fear or something else. Mary is sitting quietly at the end, not attached, looking. It's almost like she's not a part of this anymore, but she's still very much connected to how it ends. The whole room stands up when the judge comes in. A loud bang of the gavel. Now the court is in session. And just like that, the past comes rushing back. On paper, the case is about money problems. Assets that are shared. Accounts that are not visible. Property that was never split up the right way. Everyone in that room knows this isn't just about money, though. This is about being unfaithful. For years. The lawyer for Christine stands up and speaks in a calm but firm voice. She starts to build the case by gathering documents, timelines, and inconsistencies. She speaks clearly and carefully as if she has sharpened every word ahead of time. Kody looks at her, but you can't tell what he's thinking. But his fingers lightly tap on the table, which is a sign of impatience. Or maybe worry. The first shift comes next. The lawyer says, "Your Honor, we would like to call our first witness." A break. Someone says a name. And the room changes. Because it's not a stranger, not an outsider, it's family. A boy. You can feel the change in energy as he walks toward the stand. The whispers get louder. The judge even seems to lean in a little. Kody doesn't look at him. Not even once. They have taken the oath. The chair creaks when he sits down, and for a short time there is silence, the kind that sounds louder than anything else. Then the questions start. At first, it's easy. Background. The setting. Not dangerous information about family life, living arrangements, and money. But slowly and carefully, the questions begin to change. Have you ever seen family members argue about money? A break. Yes. Can you tell me more about them? One more break. This time, longer. Then, they weren't just arguments. Kody's head goes up a little. They were fights. The word hits hard. You can feel it move through the courtroom. Christine doesn't say anything. Not in a way that can be seen. But her fingers get a little tighter in her lap. Robin's eyes get bigger. Janelle lets out a slow breath as if she's been waiting for this moment. The lawyer gets closer. Who did these fights usually happen between? The son isn't sure. For just a second. But in that second, everything is at stake. Then he says it. My mom and my dad. And just like that, the line is drawn. The questions keep coming, but the tone has changed. You can't go back now. Things start to come to light. Fights at night. Decisions about money that were made without agreement. Unkept promises. Every answer adds weight. Every sentence adds to the pressure. Kody finally looks up. Really looks at his son. There is something there. Not mad. Not yet. Something more like disbelief. like he never thought it would come to this. The lawyer keeps pushing. Did you ever know that money was being moved without everyone knowing? Be quiet. A long one. The kind that goes on for so long that it seems like time is slowing down. The son eats. Then he nods. Yes. And just like that, the room is full of whispers. The judge bangs the gavel again to get everyone to be quiet. But that doesn't matter. The damage has been done. Because now, it's not just claims. It's a testimony. Christine finally shuts her eyes for a short time. Not in pain, but in something more like freedom. Janelle moves a little in her seat, but she keeps her eyes on the front. Robin shakes her head quietly as if she doesn't want to believe what she's hearing. And Mary still just watches, always looking. Kody leans forward now, and his calm face cracks just enough to show what's underneath. Not fear, not yet, but something very close to it. The lawyer takes a deep breath and then asks the question that changes everything. Can you tell the court where that money went? The son looks down, then go back, straight ahead. And at that moment you can see it. He has made up his mind. No matter what happens next, there is no going back. He opens his mouth. And then the screen goes black. The silence after that question feels unbearable, like the entire courtroom is holding its breath at the same time, and for a split second, even the faint hum of the air conditioning seems louder than anything else. The son shifts slightly in his seat, his fingers gripping the edge of the witness. Stand as if it's the only thing grounding him in that moment. Kody's eyes are now locked onto him. No longer avoiding, no longer pretending, just staring, waiting, almost daring him to speak, and across the room, Christine's expression remains steady, but there's a flicker in her eyes. Something. Deeper, something that suggests she already knows what's coming, but still fears hearing it out loud. Janelle leans forward just slightly, her posture tightening as if she's bracing for impact, while Robin shakes her head again, whispering something under her breath that no one else can hear. And Mary, still silent, still observing, her face unreadable like she's processing every second as if it's a piece of a puzzle she's been trying to solve for years. The lawyer doesn't interrupt, doesn't rush. She understands that this moment, this pause, is doing more than any question ever could. It's building pressure, forcing the truth to rise to the surface whether anyone is ready for it or not. And finally, the son exhales slowly. His voice low but steady as he says, "It didn't go where we were told it would," and that single sentence lands harder than anything said before. Kody's jaw tightens again, his fingers now still, no tapping, no movement, just tension, pure tension. The lawyer takes one step closer, her tone carefully controlled. "What do you mean by that?" And the son swallows, glancing briefly toward Christine before looking straight ahead again. "We were told the money was for the family, for all of us, for housing, for expenses, for support." He pauses, his voice tightening slightly, but that's not what happened. A ripple of whispers moves through the courtroom again, quickly silenced by another sharp strike of the gavel, but the energy has already shifted. It's no longer just tense, it's volatile. Like something is about to explode. Christine's hands now rest firmly in her lap, but her shoulders rise slightly with a controlled breath. Janelle's eyes narrow just a fraction, as if each word is confirming something she's suspected for far too long. Robin's grip on the tissue tightens, her knuckles turning pale, and Kody finally leans back slightly, crossing his arms, a defensive posture, but his eyes never leave the witness. Stand, never leave his son. The lawyer's voice cuts through again, sharper now. "So where did it go?" And this time, the pause is shorter and more purposeful, as if the son has already decided that there is no point in holding anything back. It went into accounts. Accounts that only he controlled. The courtroom erupts again, this time louder, and the judge raises her voice to demand order, but it takes longer for the noise to settle because this is not just shocking. It is explosive. It changes everything. Kody shakes his head slightly, a quiet, almost dismissive motion, but it does not match the tension in his face or the way his fingers now grip the edge of the table. Christine's gaze drops for just a second before lifting again, stronger and steadier. Janelle exhales through her nose, slowly and controlled, while Robin whispers, "No, no." That's not true, barely audible, barely holding together. The lawyer does not let the moment slip. She presses forward immediately. Were these accounts ever disclosed to the rest of the family? And this time, without hesitation, the answer is no. Clean, sharp, and undeniable. The secret is no longer a suspicion. It's a fact for everyone in the courtroom to see. Kody finally speaks, his voice cutting through the tension. That's not accurate. Calm on the surface, but there's an edge to it now. Something sharper. Something more dangerous. The judge raises a hand to remind him to wait for his turn, but the damage is already done. Now the conflict isn't just between lawyers, it's personal and raw. The lawyer turns slightly to address the judge, then back to the witness. Did you ever confront your father about these accounts? The son hesitates again, but this time it's different. It's not doubt, it's emotion. Yes, he says quietly, and the room seems to lean in again. What happened? The lawyer asks, and for the first time his voice cracks just a little. He told me it wasn't my place to ask. The words hang in the air, heavy and painful, and for the first time, Christine's composure wavers just a little. Her lips press together tightly. Janelle looks down for a moment, then back up. Her expression is harder now, more determined. Robin's eyes fill with tears, and one slips down her cheek as she shakes her head again. Mary finally shifts in her seat, just a little, but enough to show that even she isn't untouched by what is being said. Kody exhales sharply, looking away for the first time since the testimony began, as if trying to create distance, as if trying to regain control, but it's slipping, piece by piece. The lawyer takes a slow step back, letting the weight of the testimony settle before asking the next question. Did anyone else in the family know about these accounts? The son stops for a moment, his eyes scanning the room, and then he says something that changes everything again. I wasn't the only one who found out. The courtroom goes completely still, with no whispers or movement, just silence. The lawyer's eyes narrow slightly, sensing the shift, sensing the opening. Who else knew? The pause this time is intentional and planned. The son takes a breath and slowly looks around the room until he sees someone no one expected. In that moment, you can feel the tension breaking and the anticipation rising, because whatever name comes next will not only add to the story, but change it completely. Just when you think you know the truth, another layer is about to be revealed that no one saw coming. His lips part, and the courtroom is frozen in place, every eye on him, waiting. Just as he is about to speak, the judge interrupts, calling for a brief recess. The gavel slams down with a finality that feels almost cruel, cutting the moment in half and leaving the answer hanging in the air, unfinished and unresolved. As people start to move, whisper, and react, one thing is painfully clear: whatever comes next is going to be even bigger than what they have already heard. The courtroom buzzes with restless energy as people rise from their seats, the sudden recess feeling less like a break and more like a pressure valve barely holding back an explosion. Whispers ripple through the room in waves, names being guessed, accusations forming in hushed voices, but at the center of it all, the family remains where they are, frozen in their own separate storms. Kody stands abruptly, pacing a few steps behind his table, his hands running through his hair in frustration, the carefully controlled image he walked in with now visibly cracking. Robin reaches for him, her. Voice trembling as she whispers something urgently, but he barely acknowledges her. His focus elsewhere, his mind racing, trying to calculate, to predict, to regain control of a situation that is slipping further away with every passing second. Across the room, Christine finally exhales deeply. Leaning back slightly as if releasing years of tension all at once, But there's no relief on her face, only a quiet, steady determination. Janelle turns toward her, their eyes meeting for a brief moment, and in that glance, there's understanding. Unspoken, but powerful. A shared recognition that this is no longer about surviving the situation, it's about finishing it. Mary remains seated, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the floor for a moment before slowly lifting, scanning the room, calculating in her own way, as if deciding where she stands now that the ground beneath all of them has shifted so dramatically. The son stays on the stand, unmoving, his shoulders tense, his eyes distant, like he's replaying everything in his mind, knowing that what he's about to say next will change everything again. And then the judge returns, the sharp sound of the gavel. Cutting through the noise, pulling everyone back into place, the room settles, but the tension doesn't. It lingers, thicker than before, heavier, more dangerous. The judge's voice is firm as she signals for the proceedings to continue, and immediately the lawyer rises, wasting no time. Her focus sharp, her strategy clear. She knows this is the moment to press, to push, to break through whatever is left. She approaches the stand again, her heels echoing softly against the floor. A sound that seems louder than it should be in the charged silence. You stated before the recess that you were not the only one who found out about these accounts, she begins, her tone calm but precise. Can you tell the court who else knew? The question hangs in the air, heavier now than before, because this time there's no interruption coming, no escape, just the truth waiting to be spoken. The son inhales slowly, his gaze shifting once more across the room, and then it stops, locking onto someone seated just a few feet away. Someone who suddenly looks very, very still. Janelle knew, he says, and the reaction is immediate. A collective intake of breath, a shock that moves through the courtroom like a wave. Janelle doesn't flinch, not outwardly, but her eyes close for just a second before opening again, sharper now. More focused, Christine turns toward her, surprise flickering across her face, but it's quickly replaced by something else. Something closer to realization. Cody's head snaps toward Janelle. His expression a mix of disbelief and anger. That's not, he starts, but the judge cuts him off instantly. Reminding him again to remain silent, Robin looks between them, confusion and panic flooding her face. Janelle, what is he talking about? Janelle knew? She whispers, her voice barely holding together, but Janelle doesn't answer yet. She is focused on the witness stand, on the son, as if she is waiting for him to finish what he started. The lawyer steps in quickly, taking the lead. How did she find out? She asks again, her voice getting sharper. And the son doesn't hesitate this time, his voice steadier now, more certain. She saw the statements, he says. She wasn't supposed to, but she did. Another ripple of whispers, louder now, harder to contain. The judge calls for order again, but even she can't completely suppress the energy. That's building. Because this isn't just testimony anymore, it's exposure. It's the unraveling of something that was never meant to be seen. Janelle finally shifts, sitting up straighter, her expression no longer guarded but resolved, like she's made a decision in that very moment. The lawyer turns toward her slightly, sensing the shift. Mrs. Janelle, she starts carefully. Would you like to respond to that statement? There's a pause, a long one, and for a moment it feels like Janelle might stay silent, might let it pass, but then she stands, slowly, deliberately, every movement controlled, every step purposeful as she faces the courtroom. He's telling the truth, she says, her voice calm but firm. And just. Like that, the tension snaps again, louder than before. Kody shakes his head, stepping forward slightly, his frustration now impossible to hide. That's not how it happened, he insists, his voice rising despite the judge's warning, but Janelle doesn't look at him, not even for a second. Her focus remains forward, steady, unshaken. I saw everything, she continues. Every transaction, every transfer, money that was supposed to support all of us, redirected. Her words are measured, but the weight behind them is undeniable. Christine watches her closely, her expression shifting from surprise to something deeper, something like validation. As if pieces are finally falling into place, Robin shakes her head again, tears streaming now. "No, that's not true. It can't be," she whispers. But her voice is lost in the growing noise. The lawyer steps forward again, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" she asks, and for the first time, Janelle hesitates, her composure faltering just slightly. "Because I wanted to believe it could be fixed," she admits quietly. "I thought, if I stayed quiet, if I handled it privately, it wouldn't destroy everything." Her voice tightens just a fraction. "But I was wrong." And in that moment, the silence isn't empty anymore. It's filled with the weight of every secret that stayed hidden for far too long. Kody exhales sharply, running his hands over his face, the frustration now mixed with something else, something closer to desperation. "You're twisting this," he says, his voice lower now but no less intense. "You don't understand the full picture." Janelle finally turns to look at him, and the expression on her face is something no one in that room has ever seen before. Not anger, not sadness, but clarity. Sharp and undeniable. "No," she says. Quietly, for the first time, "I do." The courtroom falls silent again, completely still, as if everyone is realizing at the same time that this isn't just a dispute anymore, it's a turning point, a moment that will define everything that comes after. The lawyer glances toward the judge, then back. At the witness stand, her strategy already shifting, already evolving. "Your Honor," she says, "we would like to submit the financial records referenced in this testimony." The judge nods, allowing it, and as the documents are brought forward, placed carefully into evidence, you can feel it. The case solidifying, the story becoming undeniable. Kody stares at the papers as if they might somehow change if he looks hard enough, but they don't. They sit there, silent and damning. Christine closes her eyes briefly, then opens them again. Stronger, steadier, Janelle returns to her seat. Her posture unchanged, her decision made. Robin lowers her head, her shoulders shaking slightly, and Mary watches it all, her expression shifting ever so slightly, as if she's realizing that the truth she's been avoiding might be unavoidable after all. The lawyer takes a step back, letting the weight of the moment settle before speaking again. "No further questions at this time," she says, and as she returns to her table, the room remains still, heavy, waiting, because everyone knows this isn't the end of the revelations, not even close, because just when the truth feels complete, another piece is about to surface that could change everything all over again. And as Kody's lawyer slowly rises to begin the cross-examination, one thing becomes painfully clear: this battle is far from over, and the next question might be the one that breaks everything completely. Kody's lawyer rises slowly, adjusting his jacket with a measured calm that feels almost calculated, like he's stepping into a storm he's been preparing for, his expression composed but sharp, eyes scanning the courtroom before landing on the witness stand, and in that moment, the entire energy shifts again, because this isn't about revealing anymore. This is about dismantling, about poking holes, about turning certainty into doubt. He walks forward deliberately, each step echoing faintly, and when he speaks, his voice is smooth, controlled, almost disarmingly calm. "You've made some very serious claims today," he begins, his gaze fixed on the sun. "Claims that could have significant consequences, not just legally, but for your entire family." The son sits upright, his jaw tightening slightly, but he doesn't respond, not yet. The lawyer continues, circling slightly. "So I want to make sure we're very clear. Everything you've said here today is based on your own direct knowledge, correct?" There is a short but noticeable pause, and then the son nods and says, "Yes," his voice steady, but quieter now. The lawyer tilts his head slightly, as if thinking about something unseen. "Direct knowledge," he repeats. "Not assumptions, not interpretations, facts." The word hangs in the air, deliberate, and the son hesitates for just a moment. And that's all the lawyer needs. Because financial documents can be complicated, he continues, transfers can have multiple explanations, and accounts can be structured in ways that aren't immediately obvious. He takes another step closer and lowers his voice slightly. Isn't it possible that you misunderstood what you were looking at? There is another wave of tension in the room, but this time it is softer and more focused. This is because the doubt is being introduced carefully and strategically. The son shakes his head and says, "No," but the lawyer doesn't back down. "No? You're saying that there is no way that those transactions could have had a valid reason?" he says, raising an eyebrow slightly. The son leans forward slightly now, his voice gaining strength. "I'm saying, I asked about them," he says, "and I didn't get an answer." The lawyer pauses just long enough to let that sit, then nods slowly. "Ah, so this is about what you weren't told," he says, almost gently, not necessarily. What actually happened, and just like that, the certainty begins to blur. Not because the truth changed, but because the way it's being questioned is starting to reshape how it feels. Christine shifts slightly in her seat, her eyes narrowing as she watches the exchange. Janelle remains still, but her hands tighten in her lap. Robin looks up, hope flickering faintly in her expression, as if the narrative might still turn. And Kody watches closely, his posture straightening just a bit, as if sensing an opportunity. The lawyer continues, his tone still calm, but now carrying a subtle edge. "You mentioned earlier that Janelle saw these statements," he says, "but you weren't present when she reviewed them, were you?" The son thinks for a moment before shaking his head and saying, "No." The lawyer nods again and says, "So your understanding of what she saw is based on what she told you?" Another pause, another small crack, yes, the son admits, and the lawyer takes a step back, turning slightly toward the judge before facing the witness again. "So to summarize," he says, "your testimony relies not only on your interpretation of financial documents, but also on secondhand information." The words land carefully, deliberately, each one designed to chip away at the foundation that was just built. The son's expression tightens, frustration flickering now. "It's not just that," he insists. "I saw enough to know something wasn't right." The lawyer nods slowly, almost sympathetically, "Of course," he says, "and I don't doubt that you felt something wasn't right." He emphasizes the word felt just enough to shift its meaning. Just enough to plant that seed of uncertainty. Christine exhales quietly, her composure steady, but her focus intense. Janelle's gaze sharpens, her expression hardening as she begins to see the strategy unfolding. Robin leans forward slightly, her earlier distress now mixed with cautious attention, and Mary, still watching, still processing, but now with a hint of tension in her posture, as if the balance of everything is starting to teeter. The lawyer changes direction suddenly, his voice sharpening just a fraction. "Let's talk about your conversation with your father," he says. "You testified that he told you it wasn't your place to ask about these accounts?" The son nods, yes. The lawyer tilts his head again. "Can you recall his exact words?" The question hits differently, more precise, more dangerous. The son hesitates, his confidence wavering just slightly. "Not exactly, but that was the meaning." The lawyer steps in immediately. "The meaning, as you interpreted it," he corrects gently, and that small correction lands heavier than expected. Because now it's not just about what was said, it's about perception, about interpretation, about the fragile line between fact and feeling. And this is the moment where the truth doesn't disappear, but it starts to feel just uncertain enough to make everyone question what they believed. Seconds ago, Kody leans back now, his arms crossing again, a faint, almost imperceptible shift in his expression, suggesting that for the first time since the testimony began, he might be regaining a small piece of control. The lawyer continues, pacing slowly. "Families are complicated," he says, his tone softening slightly. "Conversations happen in moments of stress, emotions run high, things are said, and sometimes misunderstood." He stops, turning back toward the witness. "Isn't it possible that what you perceived as secrecy was actually an attempt to manage a complex situation?" The son shakes his head again, this time more firmly, and says, "No," his voice stronger. "Because if it was just that, it wouldn't have been hidden." The courtroom goes quiet again, and the tension rises again, pushing against the doubt that was just introduced. The lawyer studies him for a moment, then nods slowly, as if acknowledging the answer, but not accepting it. Hidden, he repeats. That's a strong word. He glances briefly at Kody, then back at the witness. And yet, you haven't provided any direct evidence that these accounts were concealed with malicious intent. The word malicious hangs in the air, heavy and deliberate. The son leans forward again, his frustration now clear. I didn't say malicious, he says. I said it wasn't shared, and it should have been. The lawyer smiles faintly, just enough to suggest he's found something. Should have been, he repeats, but that's an opinion, isn't it? The tension spikes again, sharper this time, because now the line between fact and judgment is being drawn in real time. Christine's eyes flash briefly, Janelle's posture stiffens, Robin's expression shifts again, uncertainty creeping back in, and Mary watches, her gaze moving between them all. As if trying to decide which version of the truth feels more real, the lawyer takes one final step back, his voice returning to that calm, controlled tone. No further questions, he says. And as he returns to his seat, the room remains suspended in that fragile space between certainty and doubt. Because while the testimony hasn't been erased, it's been shaken, just enough to make everything feel less solid than it did before. And as the judge looks over the courtroom, preparing for what comes next, one thing becomes painfully clear. The battle isn't just about what happened anymore. It's about what can be proven, what can be believed, and what can survive the pressure of being questioned, because just when the truth seems strong enough to stand, it's about to face something even more dangerous. A revelation that could either destroy it completely or make it undeniable forever. And as Christine's lawyer slowly rises again, a new folder in her hands, her expression sharper than before, the air in the courtroom tightens once more, because whatever is inside that folder is about to change everything. Christine's lawyer stands with a quiet confidence that immediately shifts the energy in the room again, the folder in her hands, not just a collection of papers, but something heavier, something final. And as she walks toward the center, every step feels deliberate, like a countdown no one can stop. Kody's eyes follow that folder now, not her, not the judge, just the folder, as if he already knows what's inside, or at least fears it. Janelle sits still, but alert. Her earlier resolve now sharpened into something unbreakable. Christine watches closely, her posture steady, her breathing controlled. Robin's gaze flickers between Kody and the lawyer, anxiety written all over her face, and Mary leans forward slightly for the first time, as if whatever is about to happen has finally pulled her fully into the moment. The lawyer stops, places the folder gently on the table, and looks up, her voice calm but carrying a weight that silences even the faintest whisper, "Your Honor." Before we proceed further, we would like to introduce new evidence into the record. And just like that, the air changes again. Heavier, sharper, charged with anticipation, the judge nods, granting permission. And as the folder is opened, you can almost feel the tension tighten like a wire about to snap. Kody shifts in his seat, his composure no longer as steady as before, his fingers tapping again, faster this time, less controlled. The lawyer begins carefully. These documents include detailed financial records, timestamps, and authorization logs tied directly to the accounts in question. Her voice remains steady. But there's an edge beneath it now, something unmistakable, something confident. She lifts a single sheet, holding it just enough for the courtroom to see without. Revealing everything at once, more importantly, she continues, they include access records, showing exactly who controlled these transactions and when. A murmur spreads through the room again. Quieter this time, but more intense. Because this isn't testimony, this is proof. Kody exhales sharply. Leaning forward now, his eyes narrowing, those records don't show the full context, he says, unable to hold back. His voice cutting through the room, the judge immediately warns him again. But the interruption has already done its job. It has revealed something. Fear, or at least concern. The lawyer doesn't react outwardly, but there's a subtle shift in her expression, as if she expected that reaction, as if it confirms exactly what she needs. Context is exactly what we intend to provide, she replies smoothly, and then she turns, her focus shifting, not to the witness stand this time, but to someone else entirely. We would like to call Janelle back to the stand. The words land with precision, and the room stills again. Janelle takes a slow breath, then stands. Her movements calm but purposeful, and as she walks forward, there's a different energy around her now. Not hesitation, not uncertainty, but clarity, the kind that comes from finally deciding not to hold anything back. She takes the oath again, sits, and looks straight ahead. Not at Kody, not at Christine, just forward, ready. The lawyer approaches, holding one of the documents. Janelle, she begins. Her tone softer now, but no less focused. Can you confirm whether you've seen this document before? She hands it to Janelle, who looks at it for a second, her face tightening just a little before she nods and says, yes, I've seen it. The lawyer then asks, can you tell the court what it shows? Janelle takes a breath, her eyes scanning the page once more, and then she speaks. It shows a transfer, a large one, from a shared family account into a separate account. She pauses, just for a second, an account that only Kody had access to. The words land hard, heavier than anything before. Because now it's not just a claim, it's backed by something tangible, something visible. The courtroom reacts again, but this time the reaction is different, less chaotic, more stunned, like the reality of the situation is finally settling in. Kody shakes his head, leaning forward again. That's not what it was for, he insists, his voice tighter now, less controlled, but Janelle continues, not looking at him, not engaging. It happened more than once, she adds, her tone unwavering, not just a single transfer, multiple. Christine's eyes close briefly, her face tightening as if each word is both painful and validating at the same time. Robin looks at Kody, her expression searching, desperate for an explanation that hasn't come yet, and Mary's gaze sharpens, her attention fully locked in now. The lawyer steps closer, pressing gently but firmly, were these transfers ever discussed with you beforehand? No, Janelle says, shaking her head. I found them after. The lawyer nods and holds up another document. And this one? Janelle takes it and quickly scans it with her eyes before her face changes again, this time more clearly. This one shows the authorization, she says quietly, and the lawyer leans in a little. Authorization by whom? The question hangs for just a moment before Janelle answers Kody, and just like that, the room feels like it tilts, like everything that was uncertain before is suddenly becoming impossible to ignore. Because this isn't just a story anymore, it's a pattern, and patterns are much harder to deny than a single mistake. Kody exhales sharply, his hands now pressed flat against the table, his composure slipping further with every passing second. You're twisting this, he says again, but his voice lacks the earlier confidence and control. The lawyer doesn't look at him or acknowledge the interruption. She stays focused. Janelle, when you discovered these transactions, what did you do? Janelle stops, her face softening a little, not out of doubt, but out of memory. I confronted him, she says, her voice quieter but still clear. I asked for an explanation, the lawyer says, and what was his response? The room leans in again, waiting, and Janelle's answer comes slowly. Deliberately, he told me. It was necessary, she says, her eyes lifting slightly, but he wouldn't explain why. A heavy silence follows, one that feels deeper than before, more final. Christine's posture shifts, her hands now clasped tightly together, Janelle's words echoing through her. Robin shakes her head again, tears falling freely now. No, there has to be more to it, she whispers, but her voice carries less certainty than before, and Mary, for the first time, her expression shows something undeniable. Conflict. Real, visible conflict. The lawyer takes a step back, letting the weight of the testimony settle, then turns slightly toward the judge. Your Honor, we believe this establishes a consistent pattern of undisclosed financial activity, she says, her voice steady, controlled, but powerful, and as she returns to her table, the courtroom remains silent. Because there's nothing left to interrupt, nothing left to soften what's just been presented, Kody sits still now. His gaze fixed on the documents in front of him, his mind clearly racing, trying to find a way out, trying to find something to hold on to, but the space around him feels smaller now, tighter, like the walls are closing in, and as the judge looks out over the room, preparing to move forward, there's a sense that something irreversible has just happened, something that can't be undone or explained away, because once a pattern is exposed, the real question isn't whether it happened, but how much more is still hidden beneath the surface. And as Christine glances briefly toward Janelle, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent understanding, one thing becomes painfully clear. This case isn't just building toward a conclusion anymore, it's building toward a final revelation that could change everything they thought they knew about each other.